before Congress?
Well, you know, Trish, I was there with him. In fact, I'm on my way back to New York from Washington, D.C. I was there with him on the floor of the House, and I saw the enthusiastic response to his speech. And, of course, he came specifically to make that point, that the idea of allowing the world's most dangerous regime to have access to the world's most dangerous weapon is a bad idea.
It's a bad deal, he's saying. Bad idea and bad deal. And it will only further complicate the situation, potentially leading to a serious nuclear threat.
Exactly, and I think that what you heard from the Prime Minister today is all the reasons. He practically listed all the reasons why the world simply does not have the luxury of allowing Iran to become nuclear. Iran is the largest producer of state-sponsored terrorism in the world, even before they acquire military nuclear capabilities with conventional capabilities. They're the #1 instigator of terrorism and violence in the world today. And I think he felt it was his responsibility, his obligation, not just to speak on behalf of the Israeli people or on behalf of the Jewish people, but also speak on behalf of entire humanity.
You heard our own Peter Cook say that this was perhaps the most anticipated speech in recent history of a state leader. How do you think and how do you hope, Ambassador, that what Prime Minister Netanyahu said today is going to change the game and change policy?
Well, it has to be understood that the timing of this speech was determined not by the political calendar in America or in Israel, and we have elections coming up in less than 3 weeks, but actually by the international community. The dealings of the international community with Iran determined the timing of this speech, and I have to say that at this particular point, these are fateful days in our eyes, and it was important for us to come to the most important legislative body in the world and make the case for a better deal.
So he's there trying to make the case for a better deal. The world is very focused on this, and yet Peter Cook, the president, is out saying not going to happen. Peter?
Well, I mean, the president, Trish, these negotiations are happening even as we speak with Secretary Kerry, and the president is under intense pressure to continue those negotiations, to try and achieve a deal, to prove Prime Minister Netanyahu wrong and achieve a deal that, as he pointed out today, is not just being negotiated by the United States, but also by other international powers. He said the notion that they're going to walk away from the table and that they're not going to secure a deal that's in the best interest of not only those countries, but Israel, other countries around the world. He says, listen, you need to have more confidence in the U.S. negotiating team, those other international players. That's one of the messages he's delivered to members of Congress, and we'll see if it resonates and if we get a deal. This conversation is not over yet, but certainly Benjamin Netanyahu has added a lot to the discussion today here in Congress. Both Republicans and Democrats have got a lot to chew on with what they heard today.
He definitely has added a lot. Ambassador, before we go, how frustrated have you been by the administration's actions here?
Well, I think you heard the Prime Minister devoting the first part of his speech to praising the administration and the President specifically for their ongoing support for the State of Israel. He said not everything can be publicly discussed, but he said, I know how devoted President Obama is to this cause and how supportive he is of the State of Israel, and he felt the need to highlight that at the outset, and I think that was a statement, a very strong statement of bipartisanship and support for the State of Israel from both sides of the aisle.
We're going to have to leave it there, gentlemen. Thank you, Ambassador Ido Aharoni and Peter Cook. We'll continue checking back in with you throughout the program on plenty of stories there down in D.C. Coming up next, while Netanyahu was addressing Congress, President Obama was on a conference call with European leaders discussing the situation in Ukraine. What could be the next big problem there in Eastern Europe? We're going to discuss right after this. See you here.